His username was u/Daniel_Wagyu, and he was about as unremarkable as a Reddit user as you could find. He was active in r/Premier League and commented a lot during match days. He posted a photo of a pasta dish he made on r/Cooking, receiving 2 upvotes, and a comment noting that the sauce looked underseasoned. But on October 14th, 2020, at 11:47 p.m., his interest in football and pasta would be replaced by something else entirely. My dad died last month in his sleep. Found this file in his email. Can anyone tell me what it says? It was his first ever post on r/Codes, a subreddit he never thought he'd be on. Below the title was a link to a Google Drive. Clicking it will bring you to a folder with a PDF file. Someone replied. That was the fastest reply he had ever received on Reddit. Easiest you're welcome. Under it was this decoded message. You have been a quiet and cooperative participant. This has been noted and appreciated. Should this correspondence reach someone other than the intended recipient, we strongly advise that it be set aside immediately. Continuation of involvement beyond this point is not covered under the original terms of agreement. Sleep Protocol 11 has been initiated. And Daniel Wagyu replied almost immediately. Wait, what agreement? My dad never mentioned any agreement with anyone. What the is Sleep Protocol 11? Within the hour, 200 comments had piled in. By morning, the post had climbed to over 2,000 upvotes. For 3 days, Daniel Wagyu was everywhere in that thread, responding to theories, answering questions about his father, and engaging with anyone who had a lead. For someone who had spent 4 years posting about pasta and football, he had suddenly found his people. But then, he stopped replying. The thread kept going without him. His name kept getting tagged over and over, but he never came back to answer any of them. People started to assume he had discovered something. They couldn't wait to find out what it was. Finally, a week later, Daniel Wagyu posted again. The update everyone was waiting for. Hi guys, I'm Laura, Daniel's sister. My brother passed away last week in his sleep. On October 24th, 2020, after Laura's comment, the thread was divided into 2. Half were condolences, while the other half accused Daniel_Wagyu of pulling a nasty prank. Well, of course, the later was a valid assumption. It was the internet after all. The only thing that lent it any weight was that after the sisters' announcement, the account went completely silent. But whether his demise was true or not didn't matter. Because somewhere in the crowd of comments, a single reply cut through all of it. I don't want to be that person, but his dad died in his sleep. He finds a message that says Sleep Protocol 11 has been initiated. He then dies in his sleep. Am I the only one noticing this? The comment received 3 upvotes and 3 replies. 2 replies told him it was a coincidence, and 1 called him insensitive. But someone took a screenshot and posted it to r/Unresolved Mysteries, and that single post had the entire internet asking the same question. What is Sleep Protocol 11? This was the message before it was decoded. Now, when I first saw this, it felt like it was not something that would make it to someone's email by accident. It's the kind of puzzle an ARG designer would build for like a first level because of how simple to decode it is. Except Daniel's profile told a different story. He was not a member of any online gaming community. He had no posts on ARG forums. There's just no sign he'd ever been interested in anything like this. But, hold on, his dad was the one who received it first, and his dad could have been a gamer. So the internet dug. The only way to find the dad was through Daniel Wagyu, but at that point, nobody knew Daniel Wagyu's full name or real face. All they had was a username. So they searched, cross-referencing it across social media platforms, looking for anywhere else that it would appear. Unfortunately, there were no matches. Though, someone pointed out a TikTok account that might be Daniel Wagyu. The person's name was also Daniel, and in one of his videos, he was demonstrating how to make a Wagyu steak pasta. For the first time, the Redditors felt like they finally had a lead. It would make sense that this is the real Daniel Wagyu, because he had been active in r/cooking for a while. However, some Redditors were quick to shut it down. Daniel's Reddit photo showed a dark laminate countertop. The TikToker's was marble. One could argue that Daniel Wagyu moved houses, but the proof that it wasn't him was in their hands, literally. Daniel's were the hands of a white man. The TikToker's were not. With no trace of Daniel Wagyu anywhere outside of Reddit, the ARG theory quickly fell apart. So people shifted their attention to the decoded message once again. The more people read it, the more that one word made sense: agreement. In fact, this was related to Daniel Wagyu's first response after the code had been deciphered. He didn't know what it meant, but someone else thought they did. A user with a legal background was the first to point it out. The language of the letter didn't read like an ARG prompt. It didn't read like a threat. It read like a contract termination notice, the kind of language a corporate lawyer would write. The Redditor was convinced that it was possibly the words from an organization that had a formal relationship with Daniel Wagyu's father, and the relationship may have just been terminated. The theory spread fast. Some agreed that Daniel's father had signed something at some point in his life, an NDA, a consulting agreement, something that required his silence, and Sleep Protocol 11 was the notification that his obligations were being closed out. Permanently. People started speculating about what industry the father worked in before carpentry and what he might have known. What kind of organization would send a contract termination notice encoded in binary? But every thread led to the same wall. Nobody could find Daniel Wagyu's father. And without that, the theory had nowhere to go. With two theories dead in the water, the investigation was running out of directions. But someone went back to the basics. Has anyone wondered why the document is 17 pages and only the first one has a code? Suddenly, the thread stopped obsessing over the decoded message and realized that they should have been looking at the document itself. And it really is 17 pages. But because only the first had a code, everyone had assumed the rest was blank filler and moved on. Except, by downloading the file into a specific file type and placing the cursor on one of the blank pages, turned it into a typing cursor. Something was in there, and the rest of the content was invisible. white text on a white background, hiding in plain sight the entire time. The people who copied it out and posted the raw output into a separate document all saw the same thing. It's more binary code. And that should be easy. The simplest way to decode that was to put it through a binary to text converter, like how the first page was easily decoded. But what they got wasn't something they expected. It was a string of different characters, another message to decode. However, no one in that thread was able to decode it. Eventually, user ffelt_w took it back to where the original mystery had started. He posted it to r/codes.
Found hidden code inside the Sleep Protocol 11 PDF. Can anyone tell me what this is?
r/codes tried, but no one reached anything useful. The post stayed unsolved. On January 2nd, 2025, at 1:14 a.m., a Redditor under the name Quacer visited r/codes for the first time. He heard about it from a friend. For the first few weeks, he was just another member. He solved a few ciphers, left some comments, nothing remarkable. He was good at it, faster than most, and more methodical, but he wasn't showing off. He was just enjoying himself. And then, sometime in late January, he filtered the subreddit by unsolved. The post from user ffelt_w was near the top of the list. Nobody had touched it since. He got curious about what Sleep Protocol 11 was. From its name, he assumed it was a sleep routine, but wondered why it had to be in some code. So before checking the file, he did a quick Google search. The top results were not surprising. Most were doctors and wellness gurus, and articles about optimizing your sleep schedule, though none of them specifically mentioned Sleep Protocol 11. Unsatisfied, he scrolled and scrolled. He read it all, and somewhere in the middle, he found Daniel Wagyu and his profile, the pasta, the Premier League comments, the decoded message, Laura's comment. He sat with that for a while. Then he downloaded the PDF. He scrolled past the first page, highlighted the blank pages, and copied the contents into a separate document, and saw what everyone else had seen: a wall of binary code. He tried the obvious first: binary to text, just a string of characters. Then to base 64, to hexadecimal, same gibberish that everyone else got. After a few hours of thinking, he tried something different. He thought that maybe it wasn't meant to be read or heard. Maybe it was meant to be seen. Quacer then used the converted binary code, the one that produced a string of characters, and started cycling through fonts. Arial, nothing. Times New Roman, nothing. Georgia, nothing. Verdana, nothing. He kept going, methodically, the way he did everything. And then he clicked Courier New. It was monospaced, meaning every character takes up the same amount of space. Nothing was making sense, until he thought of decreasing the font size. He highlighted until the code got smaller and smaller and smaller. There it was. a skull wearing a sleep cap with a mouse cursor on the bottom right. It was ASCII art all along. Quacer took a screenshot. Okay, let's slow down for a second, because a lot just happened, and not all of it deserves equal weight. So before we go any further, here's what we can actually confirm. 1. Daniel Wagyu's father died in his sleep sometime before October of 2020. 2. readme.pdf is real. The Google Drive was live, the file was accessible, and the first page was decoded almost immediately. 3. That decoded message addressed a specific recipient, referenced a formal agreement, and stated that Sleep Protocol 11 had been initiated. 4. The remaining 16 pages were not blank. They contain hidden binary, white text on a white background, and unlike the first page, nobody could decode it. The post on r/codes was marked unsolved and stayed that way for 5 years. And 5. Quacer decoded it, not as text, but as an image. Nobody had thought to look at it that way. Everything else, the ARG, the NDA, who the father was, what he signed, none of that was ever confirmed. But I don't think the foundation collapsed. I think people stopped digging too soon, because nobody asked the question that actually matters. Not what Sleep Protocol 11 means, not who Daniel Wagyu's father was, just how old is this thing? In the past, if you were curious about where an image came from, you were mostly on your own. You'd have to know someone or know somewhere or get lucky. There was no tool for it. You just had to dig until your hands gave out. But these days, that has changed. Reverse image search, it enables tracing a visual back to its source in seconds. What used to take weeks now takes a browser tab. And that was exactly what Quacer did. He was lucky to be searching in this age. He ran it through every reverse image search tool that he had access to. Google Lens, TinEye, Yandex Images, and Bing Visual Search. No exact matches. But Quacer didn't give up. He shifted to digitized document archives, going through 4 of them before he found the Klamook Archives, a digitized collection of printed materials from the 1970s and 1980s, scanned physical documents and photographs, property records, estate filings. As he scrolled through the page, one of them caught his attention. Among the documents was a single photograph from 1978. Black and white, scanned from a physical print, slightly overexposed on the left side. It showed the exterior of a building. It could be a clinic, an office, or research facility. There was no sign above the entrance, no name on the door, just an address on a small placard mounted to the right of the entrance. And below the address, the exact same image as the ASCII art, but clearer. He cross-referenced the address, 1200 Utrapu Drive, ran it through every property database he could access. No exact matches. Either the building had simply stopped existing on paper, or it didn't exist at all. Despite this, Quacer posted his findings to r/codes 3 days later. The skull, the font cycling, the ASCII art, the Klamook Archives, the photograph, the address that didn't exist. He laid it out methodically, the way he did everything. The post climbed to 2,500 upvotes. For 4 days, the thread was alive in a way the original Daniel Wagyu post hadn't been in years. Everyone was talking about not seeing the skull before. Except for one person. It came from user throwaway 492899. The image link showed a wall on a street somewhere. Brick. Unremarkable. The kind of wall you would walk past without looking at it. But in the lower right corner, small and deliberate, the skull, the sleep cap, the mouse cursor. Above the link, his 4 words.
This is near my place. Hey, saw your post. If you're comfortable sharing the location of where you found it, I'd really appreciate it. No pressure. I was hoping you would reach out. I'd be happy to.
In their exchange, the Redditor introduced himself as Milton Smith. He said he had walked past the stamp every morning for 3 weeks before he recognized it from Quacer's post. He said he'd gone back and photographed it on a lunch break and almost didn't post it because he wasn't sure anyone would care. They messaged back and forth for 2 days and also realized that they were within 30 minutes of each other. Milton was retired. He didn't say from what. He lived alone. He said he'd had trouble sleeping lately, and he had for years, since his 50s, actually. He mentioned it the way people mention the weather, casually, like it was just a fact about himself. Quacer noted it, but didn't say anything. By the end of the second day, they had agreed to meet. Milton said he could show Quacer the wall in person, and that he had something else he wanted to share. Something related to the image. Quacer woke up early on January 9th, 2025. He made coffee, checked the weather, and put on a red jacket because the forecast said it would be cold by midday. He checked his phone one last time before heading out. Milton's last message was still there at the top of the thread.
I'll be wearing a blue jacket. I'll be outside. See you at 9.
The address was 114 Bulassa Street, Newark. He had looked it up the night before, mapped the route. He knew which exit to take out of the station, which direction to walk, and how long it would take. He left the house at 8:47 a.m. On the train, he went over his notes one more time. The skull, the Klamook archives, the building photograph, the address that disappeared from the public record. Everything he wanted to ask Milton about. Everything Milton had said he wanted to show him in person. He texted when he stepped off the train at Newark Broad Street Station at 9:10 a.m. He sent a message to Milton.
Just got off the train, running a few minutes late, sorry.
No reply. He figured Milton was already outside, standing on the pavement in a blue jacket, mildly annoyed, checking his watch. A quick rideshare dropped him off on Bulassa Street around 9:21. The first thing he saw was people outside the address. 2 men were bringing someone out on a stretcher. A neighbor stood on the small square of lawn with her hand over her mouth. A car was parked at an angle in the driveway, as it had arrived in a hurry. Quacer stood on the pavement and didn't move. The man on the stretcher was middle-aged. Inside the ajar door, he could see the sleeve of a blue jacket. He wasn't sure how long he stood there. Long enough for the stretcher to be loaded into the vehicle. Long enough for the neighbor to notice him standing on the pavement and look away. He approached her quietly. He asked if she knew the man who lived there. And the woman confirmed it was Milton Smith. She said he had lived there for 11 years and had kept to himself mostly. That morning, Milton had been found by his landlord, who had come to fix a pipe. The door was unlocked. Milton was in bed. He had died in his sleep just hours before Quacer arrived. The neighbor was about to go back inside when Quacer took out his phone. He pulled up the photograph Milton had posted, asking if she knew where it was located. She pointed down the street.
2 blocks that way. It's been there forever, but I'm not sure what it is.
Quacer walked the 2 blocks. He wasn't sure what he was expecting. Something more significant, maybe. A building with history. A wall that felt like it meant something. It did not. And there, in the lower right corner, marked into the brick. In person, it was smaller than he expected. Not rushed. Whoever put it there had taken their time, had a steady hand, had done it like it was nothing, like they had done it before. He took a photograph. Then he remembered that Milton said there was something he wanted to tell him in person. Something he knew about the image. Whatever it was, it died with him. That night, Quacer updated the thread with what happened. Milton's death, and that he located the image. Everyone was super weirded out at the random death, but at the same time, got curious. They felt like the investigation was going somewhere. 3 days later, however, Quacer changed his direction. He deleted his account. Out of curiosity, I posted in the r/unresolved mysteries thread, asking if anyone had heard from him. It didn't take me long for me to receive a reply in the form of a DM.
You should stop looking.
It was from a throwaway account created that same morning, with no history anywhere on Reddit. I won't lie, I feel like I was just being trolled and that this was nothing, but I didn't stop looking. I couldn't. Daniel Wagyu's father died. Daniel Wagyu died. Milton died. 3 people, all the same way, in their sleep. And I've thought about what connects them. The easiest explanation is that the letter was the trigger, or the image. That exposure alone was enough, somehow. But if that were true, everyone who read Quacer's post should be gone. The hundreds of people who upvoted it, the ones who screenshotted it, the ones who are watching this right now. You should be dead by now. I should be dead by now. So it's not that. Which means that it must be something else. Possibly something Quacer found in the 3 days between his last post and the moment he deleted everything. Whatever it was, he just vanished. Whether that was his choice, I'm not sure.